Welcome back to the channel, everybody. And Piston rigs have entered the chat today for best duty rifles, and we are talking about the MK114 MOD 2 from PWS, a fully ambi long stroke piston system. So why would anybody want a piston system over a direct impingement system? Because there are some benefits, right? Generally, a well-built piston system, whether it's long stroke or short stroke, is going to run cleaner, cooler, and if built really right, it can definitely run longer and more consistently, especially in austere, dirty, and very heavy use scenarios. Now, the PWS long stroke system is kind of more akin to the AK, if you're familiar with that bolt and piston system, where the actual operations rod is connected directly to the bolt rather than a short stroke piston where the op rod is basically pushed back and then hammers into a solid carrier key up on top and operates the system. So a little less wear and tear on this one due to a longer op rod, where shorter op rod systems, they tend to mushroom out on the op rod just from smashing into that carrier key. And that's pretty common. Some examples of a short stroke piston system would be the 416, the LWRCI stuff, the LMT stuff. Those are more short stroke designs, where this, again, very akin to an AK, very long op rod, and it's connected directly to the carrier itself. However, it's not all positive when it comes to piston systems, right? Because there are some very cheap and not great piston systems out there. And generally the biggest negative when it comes to a piston system is they are more expensive and they are generally a little heavier. However, with the PWS system, that's not really the case. They find themselves in that price point right around the bigger names out there, whether it's BCM, LWRCI, DI systems, and even the Geisley Super Duties or URGI setups. They're right in that price point, and they're really right in the same weight class as well, coming in right around that like 6.9 to 7 pounds overall, which for a piston system is pretty solid. And also remember to make sure to leave us a comment down below what other piston systems you want to see here on the channel, because that's the whole reason we're here, is to help you guys out to make the best decision. And one of the best decisions you guys can make is to get over to ironinfidel.com and get you a battle ball. As you can see, it's disgustingly hot and sweaty out here in Arizona, so you need to stay healthy and hydrated. We got the fitness gear, the battle bottles, the EDC stuff, all for you at ironinfidel.com. The performance of the PWS is extremely solid. They have a great reputation in the industry for their long stroke piston rigs. They come in light, 6.9 pounds for a piston rifle. That's light. They have a sub MOA accuracy guarantee, which is always a plus for a duty rifle. And these things are built to be run hard and fast. This specific rifle has several thousand rounds through it, and I have yet to experience any functional issues with it. The recoil, while it does feel different than a direct impingement system, is extremely controllable and seems more linear straight to the rear than some DI guns, and especially other higher mounted piston systems like the 416, just due to how that mass and weight is moving in that longer stroke piston system. The brake out front is pretty angry though. You do not want to be next to that thing when it is going off in operation. It's got a 223 wild chambering, so it's going to run all your modern 5.56 and 223 precision rounds very nicely. The ambi controls on here are pretty solid. However, today, for some reason, even though I've used this rifle quite a bit, the ambidextrous bolt release seemed to be extremely tight. We'll roll in some footage here to the point where I barely could even activate it with my finger, which is odd because, again, having run this rifle before, it's always been fairly smooth. So I might have some wear going on with that, and we'll get into that and check it out when we get home. But generally they run pretty smooth on the ambidextrous controls. However, sometimes ambi controls can be a little bit tight, and I did experience that out here today.
Dude, look at that. Oh, man. That thing is just sticky as fuck.
Which is odd since I've run this rifle before. As far as the trigger goes, it is a mil-spec-ish design. It's PTFE coated, so it is a little bit smoother than a traditional like 7.5 pound mil-spec design, but you're definitely not gonna get a custom trigger feel like a Geisley or a Blackout Defense or something like that out of this trigger. However, it's completely suited for duty use, and most of you are probably used to using a trigger that's in that 5.5 to 6.5 pound rating when it comes to a duty rifle. But overall, she runs like an absolute champ. We did do a little bit of distance out to 200 yards with some double taps with just the magnifier that's on here behind that Vortex Huey Gen 2, which is a great optic. So it's easily usable out to longer distances than pretty much any sniper shot in current law enforcement. And since the gas system on this is adjustable, you can dial this right in for your specific ammo or your choice of suppressor. So what makes this system any different than DI or other piston systems out there? Again, long stroke, directly attached to the carrier key. It is adjustable, so you can tune it in a little bit, but the MK114 Mod 2 is a little bit different. We don't have a forward assist on this variant, and there's also a lot of kind of intricate looking machine work to it, a lot of relieved areas in there. Not only does that help with the structural integrity of it to keep it high when you're removing material, but that's also to ensure that this thing is going to be very light. Also, if we take a look at the rail, you can see it is heavily vented, and the height of this is not any taller than a standard DI AR, and that's because of how they've designed that piston system. A lot of times piston guns have a higher relief up here because of the way that piston sits in there, so the overall structure of your rifle will be taller. Again, something like the HK416. However, this one maintains that standard footprint. Now, while venting is good and venting keeps the barrel cool, the one thing I will caution you when it comes to a rail like this, that is a really nice area to get your fingers in like that and just torch them on the barrel, which I did get my 2 end fingers on today. When I grabbed it, I went right in and touched the hot barrel. So that's not my favorite style of rail. It's usable, obviously, but you just have to either wear gloves or be cognizant that if you really grab onto this thing, kind of like this, you're gonna get your hands on that hot barrel. So definitely something to pay attention to. And you can see up front our relief cut for that adjustable gas system right there. So all those different looks aren't just there for aesthetics. All that machine work does lighten up the receiver set and keep it structurally strong. The upper and lower are forged. That lower has an integral trigger guard and a very generous mag well in there. Again, fully ambidextrous. The ambi safety is from Radian, just the best in the business. And also the ambi charging handle is from Radian as well. You do get a little bit of a nicer fluted buffer tube on there. It is numerically marked so you can identify where your stock needs to be. This is the 14.5 barreled version, coming in at 6.9 pounds. The interesting part in the end of the rail, it has a pick lock system, which will work with Picatinny and M-lock attachments out on the front, which is pretty cool in those key areas on the clock positions. There's also a QD end plate that is ratchet fit. It comes with an H2 buffer, so if you want to open that gas up all the way, you can. The bolt carrier is made of S7 tool steel, which is extremely hard stuff. The barrel is 4150 chromoly vanadium, and I don't know the exact coating on this one. And at this time, I think they have changed barrel manufacturers since my production run. They are using a different, now chrome lined barrel, which is going to give you even more life to that barrel. So overall, the PWS MK114 Mod 2 is an absolute monster if you want a piston rig. And when it comes to the cost, these aren't really more expensive than any of the other big brands out there. They come in right at about $1,900 to $2K, which again is not a bad price, especially when you're talking about a fully ambidextrous sub MOA gun that comes with a long stroke piston system native to it. Now, would I personally carry this or trust my life to it out there? 100%. I'm a big fan of the PWS stuff, even though I did have that little problem with the ambi release today. I'm gonna look at that later. However, these guns have been out there in the world and well proven at this point. I've got several thousand rounds for this one, and I actually really want like an 11.5 or a 12.5 variant of this because I think that's just a real sweet spot when it comes to length. And we will definitely be having a lot more, not only piston rigs, but DI guns here on the channel, so you guys can figure out what best suits your needs. So leave us that comment down below on what other brands you want to see, and of course check out the ones we've already done in this series of best duty rifles. Get subscribed to the channel and make sure you get over to ironinfidel.com so you don't dehydrate and die out on the range like I feel like I'm gonna do today. And while you're there, check out the fitness gear, the EDC gear, and of course the softest clothing in the business, ironinfidel.com.